David the Neighbour, some J.J. Corrie whiskey for my favourite Irish. Fáilte Arash, welcome back to the bar, and a big Fáilte Gomor to David Seth, neighbour, friend, whiskey drinker. Welcome.
Hey, thank you, Andrew. Great to be here.
Yeah, so we've got a story behind these and how we've ended up here at the bar. Obviously, known you for a couple of years now. We've played a little bit of golf together. We've shared glasses of wine out back. But we got talking about whiskey when I started this crazy journey of mine. And you told me you were going for dinner at a restaurant.
Yeah, we were headed up to Bricks for dinner. It was Memorial Day. We were doing a staycation. And so we thought we'd hit a few restaurants in the Napa area. So we went out to Bottega and Bricks and up to Farmstead.
Okay.
But when we were headed to Bricks, you had said, hey, you might want to look out for a good Irish whiskey up there, J.J. Corrie. And so we did. I had it, and it was fabulous. And
I got you
the
hooked.
rest is history.
Got you, because you're a Scotch drinker.
I am a Scotch drinker, a peaty, smoky Lafroig Scotch drinker. So,
Okay. So we bringing you from the dark side to the light side,
Right.
so to speak, with
So
some
to
J.J.
speak,
Corrie.
exactly.
So you were then so taken with the J.J. Corrie that you had that you hunted some down in the East Bay,
yep,
and you bought a gift pack, I believe, isn't that right?
it was. It was the Gale and the Hanson
Okay.
together with a couple of lovely glasses with their logo on it.
And then you shot me a message, said there was a little something for me waiting on the front porch. Sandine and I were out. We came back and we discovered something on the front porch.
That's right.
Which was, this fine beauty.
The Gale.
Yeah. So then fast forward a little bit. You came for dinner last weekend. You brought the Hanson with you, kind of the sister or the twin,
Right,
to
right.
the Gale. We finished dinner. We had a lovely meal out back, and
That's right.
we cracked both bottles. The three of us, because number 3, Sandina's over there behind the camera. We all tasted them, and I really enjoyed the difference between the two.
Yeah, they were wonderful. Very nice. And surprising how delicious the Gale was.
Yeah. So we decided, right, well, we have these two together, and obviously, you've obviously enjoyed the Hanson, I can tell.
I have. It's it's been a nice summer whiskey.
And obviously, I haven't enjoyed the Gale as much. We'll make sure we catch up on that one. So we thought we got the two of them back together.
Right.
Let's taste them. Let's kind of do the my favorite Irish, because I'm going to guess that right now this is your favorite Irish whiskey.
It is my favorite Irish.
So before we jump into tasting them, some background. You're originally from Hawaii.
From the Hawaiian Islands, that's right. I was born and raised there, and have been in the Bay Area for about 5 years. This is my second time in the Bay Area. I lived here about maybe 20 years ago for about 5 years, and now I'm back.
And you're back here because of work?
I'm back here because of work, and in Napa Valley specifically because of work. So it's a tough place to work, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah, you're happy to tell folks you're involved in the project management of...
That's right. The state is building a new $300 million skilled nursing facility for CalVet up in Yountville, and so I'm the state's construction principal for that, and we're here for a few years.
You have a rough commute. You occasionally have to cycle to work.
I do. It's about 10 miles up the trail. That's right, to the project.
It's about 12 miles back.
Exactly.
Not many people know this. It's actually uphill.
It's uphill.
Coming.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So, and then in over the various months in our various conversations, you've shared that your brother-in-law has an Irish pub.
That's
back in
right.
Hawaii.
My brother-in-law and my sister are in the Irish bar business in Honolulu. They've been very successful, and he has a new venture, the Black Shamrock Tavern.
There's a mouthful.
Yeah, I know. In Chinatown in San Francisco, right on the Irish corner across from Murphy's Irish Bar. So
we've talked about it's top of my list for when I eventually make it to Honolulu. I look forward to getting an introduction to your brother-in-law and tasting his top shelf whiskies there.
I'm sure we'll have to rope you into doing a tasting when you get there.
And then as part of my journey, one of the things I did here was I invited a few people who knew their stuff, so to speak, to the house a few weeks back, and you were one of those, obviously being a Scotch drinker. invited a winemaker, wine educator, and a distiller to the house, and you were part of that. How was it? How was the experience of tasting?
You know, it was great. I loved. You started off with a cocktail, and that was what was
Poutine.
lovely.
Poutine
The
cocktail,
poutine,
yeah.
it was
From-
lovely. You got it right there.
We used some of the Mad Mark chair.
Yeah, it was very nice. It was fun to sit. You had some restaurant professionals there. I think you had a chemist in the distilling
Chris, the
industry.
distiller,
Yeah. So it was quite informative. It was terrific. We got to taste kind of a range of different things that you had for us. And
Yeah, we went through the 4 styles, which was great.
Yeah, and lots of good discussion.
Yeah, which was great, and introduce you to the 2 glass tasting there, which we're going to use here. I use that whenever I do a tasting, just allows me to, particularly with these 2, they weigh in at 46%.
Right.
So, there's definitely, some alcohol comes off. So when you are in the glass without the liquid, it just is easier to get some of the aromas. So speaking of tasting and aromas, I suppose we should
Well, let's go.
we should pour away. So,
Absolutely.
So I will pour the Hansen in the right hand glass here for both of us. We'll do that, and then we'll pour the Gale at the same time. So a little bit that there. Yeah, lovely light colour on this one. And you've obviously had this for a couple of months now. What is it about this you like?
It is. It's light. It's flavorful, but not overpowering. Again, coming from the smoky peaty Scotch, it's delightful. And with the warm weather we've been having here in Napa, it's just been the perfect whiskey in the afternoon on a warm day.
Yeah, no, that's
refreshing and
yeah.
and almost crisp. With a little bit of ice in there and a splash of water.
It's funny, because when I've tasted it and we tasted it when you brought it over, I found it kind of a lemony, limey character in there. That to me is crispness. That's citrus character.
Right.
So, so I suppose we should say Sláinte.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sláinte.
Sláinte.
So the Hansen. Yeah, light on the colour front.
wow.
I just love that colour. So
Yeah.
I'm doing some digging. So for folks who don't know, J.J. Corrie is an Irish whiskey bonder. Bonding is the old Irish art and tradition of actually buying made spirit from distillers, and then they age it in their warehouse. So they get to choose what goes into the barrel, and they get to obviously do the blending afterwards. So this is a blend of 2 different aged single grains. So before we jumped on, we talked about that. They have a 10-year-old single grain, 80% of this, and then the other 20% is a 4-year-old single grain. So all single grain. So my guess on that is the majority of this starts as corn is essentially the mash bill, and if I'm wrong on that, happy to be corrected. And I believe that their philosophy there is that no colour additions take place. All the colour or lack of colour we see in this comes from the barrels.
Right.
So really light on the colour front. So you think it's going to be a kind of a thin whiskey, but goodness, it's quite the opposite.
Right.
The nose, I talk again about that delicate, that lovely delicate lemony, limey character. Vanilla and caramel comes through. When you brought this over last week, I was just loving sipping it out in the back there. So yeah, that's really attractive nose.
I'm gonna splash a bit of water in there.
Yeah, and then on the palate, just same things again. Just really delicate. So, like all good Irish whiskies, David, there's a story behind the name on this one. So it's called the Hansen, and on the bottle there's a bowler hat. So it turns out there was a guy called Andrew Hansen who was the excise man for County Clare. Back in the day, he and J.J. Corrie apparently got on really well, so I suspect that he might have turned a blind eye every now and then to shenanigans that happened with not reporting and that sort of thing. Anyway, didn't Andrew Hansen propose to J.J. Corrie's daughter Josie, and then they ended up getting married. So if you're going to be a whiskey bonder, you may as well have an excise man in the family.
And so an homage to
very much so. I think
to Mr. Hansen.
I think a lot of what they do now at J.J. Corrie is pay homage to what he did back in the day, and there's there's, as I said, lots of great stories in Irish whiskey, and that's definitely one of them. So yeah, I agree with you on the summer sipper.
Yeah,
I actually, this could be a whiskey that at 5 o'clock, because often we will drink our whiskey at the end of the night.
Right.
I could see this being something
Oh,
to.
yeah.
It actually, to me, almost gets the palate going. That kind of freshness. So yeah, God, it's lovely. Obviously, you gifted me the bottle of the Gale, and you bought them as a gift pack. Just for folks who are watching this, just so they have an idea of pricing, the Hansen is about $50 or so retail,
That's right.
give or take. This one was bottled in 2020. I'm guessing there's kind of an annual bottling of it. Again, I'm happy to be corrected if there isn't, but I really like it. I really
I do
enjoyed
too.
it when you brought it
Yeah,
over.
it's just lovely.
Yeah. So guilty as charged. When you came over last week, it was the first time we cracked open the Gale.
It was, yeah. I hadn't had it before that, and so what a wonderful opportunity to.
Yeah. Very different.
Ooh, very different.
So again, weighs in at 46%.
Right.
This sells, again, you generously gifted me the bottle. About $75 a bottle is what it sells for. So it's not a cheap bottle of whiskey. So thank you for your generosity.
My pleasure.
Back when you bought it for me. What a treat this is. This is just, it's a knockout whiskey. So a blend of 60% malt and then 40% grain. And then within that, there is a list of items that go into that makeup, which I'll obviously share underneath the video because it's too much for me to remember here. But one of the component parts of this is a 27-year-old whiskey. So, adds to the complexity. A much deeper color than what we tasted.
Yeah,
with
this is just
the Hansen.
amazing.
I think, oh goodness. So, truth be told, we had a glass of this last night over a nice big ice cube, and just that little bit of interaction with the ice, it almost kind of made the flavor sing.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
really expressive.
Right.
And you don't know this yet, but to return your generosity, I'm sending you home with the Gale, so you can enjoy it.
Well, thank you very much, and enjoy it. I will.
I think a one good turn deserves another.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, for me on the kind of the nose of the palate of the Gale, there's it's wood characters are really evident, smoke, char, and then there's almost, I find, and everyone tastes differently, I find a kind of a toffee, fudgy, almost caramel texture to it in there. And when I put it on the palate, the spices are they're right up front. So for me, there's pepper, there's some clove, and I find bizarrely enough, a little bit of cinnamon in there, a little bit of sweet spice. And yeah, it's just gorgeous. So
Yeah, it's luxurious on your tongue and in your mouth, and it's
kind of coats.
Yeah.
I'd agree. Yeah. No, it's a fantastic drop. So, I believe these are the only two we can get here in California.
I think you're right.
Of the range from the great folks at JJ Corrie. So, as you know, we're headed back to Ireland in a couple of weeks' time. So I'm going to do my darndest to find a third bottle of one of their other wonderful, and see if we can get a hat trick here of JJ Corrie's.
All three, and maybe four. There
believe
might
that-
be four out there,
I think-
if I'm
I
not mistaken.
believe there's even a fifth.
Okay.
And obviously, they make lovely whiskey, so
Right,
there's big demand for it. I know a couple more of them are available on the East Coast from what I've seen. So,
Okay.
but demand, if they can sell them on the East Coast,
Right.
why would they bring them all the way out here to us?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a blessing to have these two, and they're in many ways wonderfully contrasted. This is they could you've got your summer and your fall coming into the holidays whiskey. I think it's it's very nice.
Okay, so I have you hooked on Irish whiskey. Good.
You have my full attention.
Good. Task has been successful. That's kind
Absolutely.
of is sharing, a lot of these great stories, and obviously I'm not sharing them because you bought these, you shared them with me, and I appreciate that. But it's great to open people's eyes to different
It
whiskeys.
is, and frankly, and I didn't know that much about them, so it's been wonderful just to kind of explore them with you, and that you're excited about them, and learning so much and imparting that back to me. So it's been terrific. Thank you.
Good. No, thank you. And I suppose with that, we got to finish these.
Well, that we will.
Yeah, so we'll have a sláinte.
Sláinte.
Finish up.
Absolutely.
And see you next time.
See you next time.
Yeah, these are great. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank
my
you very
pleasure.
much.
My pleasure. This is when